8 o'clock, we'll continue in just a couple minutes. We'll continue with our high school, talking about academics and guidance in our high school. Mary, thank you so much for your question. Do kids generally feed from the South Shore more than the North? Parochial schools, public, any insight to the demographic of a typical incoming class? I think our classes are becoming more and more, there's just a variety of students, whether they're from the city of Boston, from North City, certainly a good number of students from the South Shore. We have students from parochial schools, from private schools. So really a good diversity of the different backgrounds. But if you'd love to learn more, Mary, you can email one of us, and we can put you in touch with someone from your particular neighborhood or town, and with a current parent or one of us who serves those particular regions. And we had a question also about our virtual Eagle for a Day. So our virtual Eagle for a Day, we deliver via Zoom, and it's a very engaging hour and a half. We have kind of a day in the life of a 7th grader, if you're looking at 7th or 8th grade, or a 9th grader, and you'll take some mini lessons that's really geared for your son. And at the end of that day in the life, we have a little game to recap, and then we go into a live student panel. So your son can ask any of the questions that he's been thinking about. And so it's been working really well. And we kept it as brief as possible, but as impactful and engaging, because we realize how much we're on screens these days. So I'm going to try to share a video with you. If we're having trouble with sound, you could just let me know in the comments section, and we can go from there. But this is a video from our last particular program, which was focused on athletics. And this is athletics in the high school.
Conversation about life, and it was nice to have a senior come and talk to an underclassman like myself and make me feel comfortable and a part of the team.
I'm sorry you couldn't. We couldn't hear it. You could probably hear it over my microphone when it came on, but you could see Paul Terry there, and he was talking about. Paul Terry is a member of our varsity baseball and a member of our varsity hockey teams. He's talking a lot about the character development. What he learned as a freshman from his seniors on his team, and how he's been able to give back. So if you're interested in athletics, and I know a lot of our prospective families are, you can check out those episodes in the video section on our BCI Facebook page. So let's get started with tonight's guest from our high school. I'd like to welcome Kim Smith, our academic vice principal, and Suzanne Wilsbach, one of our guidance counselors. And my colleagues were texting in, making fun of me that when I had this view, I had a cross over my head, and it wasn't exactly a halo, but I'm going to go with this view for now so I can stop those comments coming in. But if you have any comments, or if you have any questions, please feel free to type them into the comments section and ask us any questions. You can also email us at enrollment@bci.edu. But Kim and Suzanne, welcome, and I'll let you introduce yourselves. Kim, maybe you can go first.
Great. Hi, thank you for having me. Good to see you both. My name is Kim Smith. I'm the academic vice principal here at BC High. This is my second year in that role. I started on Morrissey Boulevard back in 2001 as an English teacher, and I spent about 10 years, 11 years teaching the boys in the classroom, the English curriculum. And for the past 10 years, I have been working in the academic administration to help oversee all of our classes.
Great. How about for you, Suzanne?
Hi, everyone. My name is Suzanne Wilsbach. I have been at BC High for 10 years. Prior to joining the guidance staff in the high school, I worked in college admission at the College of the Holy Cross in Worcester. So I actually learned about BC High from the admission side of my work and kind of fell in love with the school then and have really enjoyed my time at BC High.
Great. So let's have starting our conversation chronologically. If you're thinking about a prospective 8th grader and God willing gets accepted into BC High and he's starting to think about what his freshman curriculum might be like next year. Kim, maybe you could share a little bit about what our freshman curriculum is like and why it's crafted that way.
Absolutely. So we welcome students from a lot of different places, a lot of different schools, and we welcome them here and we ask them to start with a really rigorous program. So a lot of parents will ask us if we have honors courses starting in freshman year. And to be honest, we really respect the work that Father Nolan does and the enrollment team does to get really excellent students to our school. And so we have a lot of classes that are challenging and rigorous and don't have the word honors attached to them. Freshman year, though, the places where we look for placement are around language and math. Those are the two places where we ask students to sit for exams if they feel that they want to advance or take something at a higher level than algebra or a higher level than a level 1 language. So our language offerings are Latin, Chinese, French, and Spanish, and so they can take a test for any of those and kind of place ahead. But otherwise, every single student takes English 1, which means they start the year reading short stories. They read, this year they're reading Octavia Butler's book called Kindred. They read the entirety of Homer's The Odyssey, translated by Robert Fitzgerald. They all take biology together. They all take religion together, Christian thought. So they start to learn about the culture that we really are fans of here, the Jesuits, the history of St. Ignatius, and the history of the Catholic Church and Christian tradition, Christian thought. And they take global studies. So they start together by studying the entire world. They also have other opportunities to take fine arts in a lot of different ways. So they have choices there, and they can be challenged to learn about music if it's not something they've studied before, or if it's something they're super passionate about, visual arts, drama. And we have them take a health and wellness class because the care for themselves and who they are in the world and their own health matters a lot. So that's the freshman year curriculum in a nutshell. We also have them take a class every year called group guidance. And Suzanne can talk a lot more about that in good detail about what that work is.
Yeah, Suzanne, how many students would you say you're meeting at one time in group guidance? And what is that? What is group guidance like?
So every student, when they enroll at BC High, is assigned to a guidance counselor who ideally will work with them through a 4-year process. And we take a holistic approach to our counseling. So we do personal counseling, academic counseling, and college counseling. I think the way that we are a little bit different from a lot of other schools, especially as I was doing my search to move to the other side of the desk, was that BC High has a model where we teach class. So every day I'm teaching usually between two or three classes of my groups of students, freshmen and seniors in first semester and sophomores and juniors in second semester. The class runs and has the same length of time as any other academic subject in the school. And students are meeting with me in groups, sometimes as small as 2. I had a senior class today of 2 of my seniors, and usually only as large as 12. So we have a lot of time. There's never a first year student that will be on campus longer than a week of school and not know who their guidance counselor is. So it creates a dynamic where you're seeing your students frequently throughout the first semester in a really formal way in class and delivering different content and spending time talking with students and for them to be able to get to know you And what that leads to is often this relationship where students feel really comfortable accessing you in other ways. So our department becomes this place where it's sort of a revolving door of so many different students for so many different reasons. And I think that a lot of the comfort between counselor and student, and counselor and family, counselor and parent, counselor and guardian, comes from the time that you spend in class, building those relationships and allowing students to share themselves with you and for you to share yourself with them as their counselor.
Suzanne, you were talking recently about sharing the report cards and reviewing the report cards with some of your students. And what did some of your freshmen notice about what it's like to walk into a classroom here?
Yeah, I had so we review, part of what we do with first year students is that we review report cards with them. And we review their progress halfway through the quarter. So using a program called Canvas to look at their grades and talking them through different subjects. And if they need to see a teacher, making sure that they're doing that. If they're missing any assignments, really helping them get a hold of those, making sure they're submitting things correctly. And then when report cards come out, we're looking at that quarter one grade with them. And I'm always asking students about the transition from middle school to high school. And a lot of them will say things like, I walked into the classroom on the first day and everyone was paying attention and everybody was doing what they were supposed to do. And for some students, that's really different from their middle school experience. And I think that they feel really supported in the classroom, but they feel really challenged in a good way. And they start to realize, sometimes through conversations with their fellow ninth graders, but even often with their senior mentors, that it's cool to be smart, that it's okay to care about your work, that you should be doing your homework. That's an expectation and a sign of a good student. And there's just a lot of positive feedback about being a student and what that means and what that looks like. And I think for a lot of our students, they may be someone who really excelled in their middle school, but maybe they were a little bit of an outlier because they cared about their academic life. And at BC High, that just tends to be the norm. So I think it motivates a lot of students to become their best academic self, and they become really comfortable with stretching and with asking for help because that's what the culture of BC High breeds.
Kim, you've noticed how it's cool to be smart with your role, to be able to drop into all these different classes. What have you noticed when some of the freshman classes say that you've dropped into recently?
So it's so fun to watch what happens in class, and each class is obviously super different. So I walked into a freshman English class a couple days ago, and one of our teachers, who is an alum, and his son is also a student here, and he's been teaching for 25 years, and he's brilliant. And he's known for doing a thing called the word of the day, Mr. Fletcher. He teaches the word of the day. And I happened to walk in, so I've known Ron for 20 years. And I happened to walk in when he taught kind of his most infamous word of the day, which is flaxa naxa nilipilification. I'm pretty sure I got that right. And it literally means the study of worthless or meaningless things. And so I was like so excited to see him do this lesson that I know he's done for years. And I go in the back of the room and I sit there and I look up some of the kids that are in the back row, and they were saying these brilliant things and picking apart, parsing the etymology of a word and how it comes from the meaning of wool and also nihilism and what does that mean? And they were asking questions, and there was a kid from Roslindale sitting next to a kid from Milton, sitting next to a kid from Randolph, sitting next to a kid from Dorchester. There's a kid from Hingham in there. I can't remember which other ones. But anyway, they were all sitting in there and they were coming up with ideas about, and Ron would pepper them with questions of what's the difference between causation and correlation, and how does this relate to the story that we were reading? So there's it's fascinating to see this variety of kids have these really thoughtful, engaged, complicated classes. And then, a couple weeks ago, I walked into a chemistry class where a teacher's hand was on fire. So it's a great combination of these pieces, and our teachers really ask our students to pay attention, and they do. And to Suzanne's point, that idea that kids are taking notes in every class, it's rare for kids not to be taking notes. Or in a flipped class, like in our math department, they do a lot of flipped classes where the students will watch the lecture in the evening on a video and come in the next day And that's their chance to not just take notes, but to know that they have to figure out how to ask questions to make sure they understand what's going on. So there really is a variety of styles, but I think common throughout all of the classes that I see is that the care the teacher demands of how the student pays attention to what they should be learning. It's really inspiring.
I wonder, Suzanne, if there's some students who are thinking, well, I'm in middle school right now, or, you know, my school might not, I don't really have a relationship with my guidance counselor. You know, okay, great, I'll pick my classes. You know, what will that be like? Maybe you have an example of a student like that who's just been such a good student, he hasn't had a use for a guidance counselor.
Mm-hmm. I think it's really common for middle school students to say, I didn't spend, you know, if they come from the Arupe division, they have a very different experience with a counselor because they've engaged with them really, you know, with a lot of frequency. But coming from so many different middle schools, a lot of students will say, you know, I really only met my guidance counselor when I was applying to BC High. And so I think it's really common for students to kind of wonder what my role will be with them. And I think there are students that, I have one student in mind, for example, that he was a student from the very beginning. He excelled academically. He didn't need really any extra support from me to encourage him to see teachers or any help submitting homework assignments or following up about classes or tests. He really kind of hit the ground running academically. But in his sophomore year, I believe, he was a lacrosse player and he got a concussion. And it went from him not really needing a lot of academic support from me at all to literally seeing me every single day to figure out how to follow his medical protocol, which required some academic accommodations. And then as he healed, to help him figure out which courses he needed to focus on, which ones were giving him a longer extension, which assignments he really needed to do, or maybe could have been a little tweaked or waived. And because he was managing 6 classes, I sort of became that person who was kind of housing all of this information for him, and we would sit together daily and figure out a daily plan. And he sticks out in my mind because I actually was on a panel with him talking about academic life at BC High, and he said, I was a student who really didn't see myself needing to use guidance except for the college process. And that all changed when I had my concussion. And so his story is one of complete success, but is certainly a way that he engaged with me in a way that he did not anticipate as an 8th grader when he was looking at BC High.
Great story. We talked about a daily plan, kind of the daily course of studies here and what it's like for those families who are just joining us who have not had the chance to have their son in our virtual Eagle for a Day program. That is a great way to get a sense of our daily schedule. We've squeezed a day in the life of a 9th grader, Derek, into an hour, and then we play a little game. This is all through Zoom, engaging through conversation, through mini lessons. And then after that day in the life, we have a game and a live student panel with some of our 9th and 10th graders. So your son can ask any questions kind of in a small group format with other prospective students. So virtual Eagle for a Day is a great way to learn more. You can email us at enrollment@bchigh.edu to learn more about that. Or if you're already connected with us through Ravenna, you could just go into the events section there. Also, just one more point in terms of getting to know us a little bit better. We are offering in-person tours of our campus. So you can come every Wednesday for Walkabout Wednesdays. We just had a number of families today checking out our campus. We're able to pop into the different buildings to get a real sense of what BC High is like. And families have been very happy with that. So we're here. My name is Father Nolan. I work in the enrollment office here with Kim Smith, our academic vice principal, and Suzanne Wilsbach, one of our guidance counselors. And we're talking about academics and guidance in our high school. And we talked a little bit at the beginning about the transition to high school. And Now I'd like to say, all right, the students have landed. They've made some friends in their common classes with other freshmen. They've met other folks and been encouraged to engage in sports and co-curriculars through group guidance and through their relationship with their guidance counselor. Now they're here. I'd like to just take a look at kind of our preparation for students. Students come back and they often say, I was so prepared to write my first college paper. How do we do that? Is that something that happens overnight? Kim, and you taught in the English department, maybe you could share a little bit about that process.
Sure, happily. So from the English, first of all, I want to say that writing happens in a lot of our departments, and I think that's one of the reasons why students are so well prepared for college. The way the English department starts, I think surprises some folks is there aren't long essays that happen freshman year. There's a real focus on the structure of sentences and the structure of paragraphs themselves as really important foundational tools, in the same way that algebra is a clutch foundational study for freshmen because all other math kind of depends on it. And so freshman year, they spend a lot of time figuring out the parts of a sentence, figuring out how to write good ones, and figuring out how to write solid paragraphs. Sophomore year, we have, there are 3 graduation requirements around writing. The first one is in sophomore year. In the middle of sophomore year, it serves as their mid-year exam. They have to write a 5-paragraph essay, and they have to meet certain standards in a pretty complicated rubric. I say that with a smile because I think I helped write it. It's like there's 10 points on it, but it ranges. So they're being evaluated on things from like grammar, as well as a development of their own original idea and how they're able to carry that using evidence from text. It's a sit-down exam. All sophomores take it at the same time. And if they don't pass it, they have to retake it until they do. And so that's the sophomore year requirement for writing. It's a great foundation, again, for writing. Junior year, they up that game a little bit. And the requirement for junior year is to do the junior term paper, which is a little bit of a hefty reputation among the students. It's a beast. It's lengthy. They have to read a couple of significant works, and they have to incorporate secondary sources. What I love about that lengthier assignment is that it really taps into a deeper level of thinking, because it's asking them to read text, find research about what other people have said about it, and develop their own original thesis on it. Again, a rubric is used that's common across for every student, and they have to pass to a certain standard. If they don't pass it, they have to stay through the summer and try again. So we take those requirements very seriously. Senior year, it starts to be, I think, a little bit more fun, or they ease up in terms of external requirements. All seniors work with their English teachers and with their guidance counselors on their college essay at the beginning of the year. And then the final graduation requirement for our writers, for all of our students to be better writers, is the senior English writing project, affectionately known as the SOUP. And in this one, instead of doing an analysis of an outside text, they choose a text themselves, and they write about themselves using the lens of what we call the grad at grad, which is 5 pillars that we aspire in all of our classes to help our boys to become from. If they start in 9th grade, from 9th grade through 12th grade, if they start in 7th grade, we start early with them in 7th grade. And those 5 pillars are intellectual competence, openness to growth, commitment to justice, being religious, and being loving. And so we ask them their senior year to reflect on their growth in those 5 particular ways, and to use a text of their choosing to help them articulate that growth. So that's the English department's writing curriculum that goes throughout. I will say that in social studies and religion, they're writing alongside. So even though in freshman year in English, they're writing smaller, in their social studies and religion classes, they'll be writing lengthier pieces too. So it's enhanced by the writing that happens across the curriculum. And
Suzanne, so, in terms of being intentional, thanks, Kim, in terms of our intentionality of how we build good writers, Suzanne, in terms of, Kim talked about reflection on the grad and grad senior year. That's something that we've been reflecting on, certainly through our retreats and in our classes. But can you talk about small group guidance, the topics that we talk about, and some of the reflection topics we have throughout our 4 years?
So every group guidance year has a little bit of I guess you could call it a theme. So for example, freshman year, it's really trying to get the kids settled into the community, involved in the community. knowing more about what sort of makes a successful student. I think there's always students entering the school thinking about being smart, but helping them to have a growth mindset of these are actions that you take as a good student to be successful. It isn't about being smart. It's about developing skills that help you to be a good learner. And then sophomore year, our theme is more identity. So who are you to yourself, to your family, to your community, to your school community? And we do there's a lot of room in sophomore guidance to talk about growth and experiences and gender and identity and all kinds of things. In junior and senior year, there's a real shift to more life after BC High. And for most of our students, that's going to be enrolling in a 4-year college. So we talk about, we say in our office a lot that at times, if you really only read about what's happening in college admission, it can feel as if the process becomes very scripted, and there's kind of feels like a dirtiness to that. Like it's a scripted process, it's not authentic. And we talk with our students from the very beginning that we want them to have an authentic high school experience. And part of having an authentic high school experience is having challenge. And part of being successful is falling down. So freshman year, it's really helping them to build and live their authentic high school experience. By junior and senior year, it's especially senior year, in the college process, it's more about you've lived this experience, you've built this experience. This is what you now mean to this community that you've been a part of for 4 years, and now you're sharing it. So there's a real, our model itself is very Jesuit, and that we're not a department divided by personal counseling and college. We take a holistic view of the student so that the same person who's helping them pick classes knows them as a young man and as a young student, and is also has the knowledge of the college process to help form the choices that they make. So there's a holistic approach to our department that I think really very naturally falls into the curriculum that we build appropriately across grade levels.
I think part of that authentic experience too is to be able to have choice in your classes and the variety, and be able to choose. Okay, maybe you can talk about what kind of variety, what does choice look like? Do students get what they want? If they're going on, an AP course, they have to take APs in every course. Maybe you could also share about some of our distinctive programs too.
Sure. Our students, I would say, if it's existentially, do they get what they want? I would say I'm not sure about that, but 97% of the time they get the classes that they ask for. And so I think that's a pretty good rate. Our academic dean works incredible hours to make sure that we have a schedule that allows them to take a variety of classes. In freshman year, we start out their choices with language, which is an important choice. It's a 3-year commitment. So what of the 4 languages that we offer do they want to make a commitment to? And in fine arts, those are kind of, I think of them as like younger choices. They're smaller. They don't last as long. But the amount of choices that they have does grow as they get older. And there's a lot of electives. We offer, in terms of pushing our students to excel, we offer about, I think this year it's 23 AP classes that we offer in a wide variety of subjects. One of the things that's, I think, really important, and it's one of the reasons we don't track freshman year, is it affords us an opportunity to let any student take classes at almost any time. A lot of our APs are open enrollment, and we try really hard to let kids, if they're expressing an interest and they want to, and we think that they can keep up, to try to take AP classes. So if a student's really interested in math, he can take AP calculus. He can take AP calculus AB. He can take AP calculus BC. He can take multivariable calculus. We're looking at different ways to grow our programs to also include things like linear algebra. So there's a lot of growth. And if a student doesn't want to take those classes, he can take up to calculus, and take AP English, AP European history, AP Human Geography. But he can take one AP exam. Some of our students take up to 5 or 6. We don't encourage that. I don't say that because I'm really cognizant of the rat race that sometimes the APs can be in terms of racking up the numbers. Like Suzanne had mentioned, our guidance counselors work really hard to talk to all of their students around course selection time to make sure that they're taking classes that they want to take, that will be good for them, that will help prepare them for college, and that will challenge them enough. We want all of our students to be really challenged, but we don't want them to be overwhelmed. And that's a really fine line when students start to feel that external pressure around how many APs are being taken. Another way that we show that care for not letting that external pressure drive our students' decisions is we don't rank our students here. The ones that want to kind of might swap GPAs amongst themselves because they have a GPA, but we don't broadcast that. It's not something that we push them to strive to be because we think that kind of competition within the community actually undermines the brotherhood that we're working hard to help them maintain. So that piece is really important. That being said, they still do, they take a lot of really strong classes. They're really strong. And we take a list of our top, usually around 20 or so students who have performed really well. And when we pick things like valedictorian or the speakers, our senior speakers at our graduation mass, we ask our faculty to weigh in. So we share with our faculty, these 20 or 30 students have shown themselves to be the strongest academically. Of them, who do you want to select to represent, again, our graduate at graduation? So a student who's done really well academically, but also has showed himself to be a leader in other ways, whether that's in sports or in the sports debate club or another co-curricular, or on our stage or in our music program, or just has been a really good friend to people, has been a great leader on a Kairos. And so the faculty select our highest honors for students based on, like Suzanne had said, the care of that whole student rather than just something like a number, which can sometimes really limit how we understand our boys. So I don't know if that answered all of your questions. I think I might have missed one, but you can tell me.
I'd love to, but we're out of time. I'd love to just, that was great though, to talk about, we've been hearing all about our academics and guidance here at BC High. And Dennis, thank you for your comment. The place has changed dramatically since I went there in the 70s. It seems like a better place, quite frankly, but it had been very scripted and regimented academically when I was there. Great to see. Good luck from a grad living in California. Thanks so much for joining us, Dennis. And I think the core values that grad that you both mentioned still continue to live on. And through our conversation, it's very clear that a student who comes to BC High is going to continue to build on the foundation in his family and in the school he came from before to become a more loving, a more gentle, more vulnerable student, thanks to our good teachers and our guidance counselors they have for 4 years, and a student who loves to learn, who is really engaged and has, I think, Kim, you talked about the balance of the fun in the class. You saw a hand on fire. That was a teacher's hand, thankfully.
Yeah.
But,
and we put it out. We put the fire out.
Jesuits, yeah. So the Jesuits hand, we put the fire out. But students who love to learn. Let's just close. Suzanne, we got to talk about fun being a really important part of the community. You are the curator of Friday Afternoon Fun. Can you tell us about that?
Yes, I am.
I'm sure Dennis didn't have this when he was.
I'm losing track of the years now, but several years ago, I went to Australia twice in 1 year. My spouse was very jealous of the travel opportunities of my job in that year. And I went to a Jesuit school in outside of Sydney, Australia. And we were looking to build a partnership there, and we successfully did that. And so then I returned in June with students for the first time. And when I was there, the school had a lot of outdoor space. You could be outdoors a lot, and a lot of the classrooms had doors that faced right into the courtyard. So I was there, and on the first Friday, I was with another colleague of mine, and we happened to be at the school at the end of the day. And the final bell rang, and all of a sudden this music started blasting from, every space in this courtyard. And there was a student who had a jug, so equivalent of a detention for those of you who aren't familiar with the term. And he was picking up trash, and he's like dancing down the hall as he's picking up the trash. And I looked at my colleague and I said, we need to bring this back to BC High. So we worked tirelessly to bring Friday music to our community. We take 2 song suggestions every Friday, one from faculty, one from a student, and we kick off the weekend right with some tunes playing in the Commons and throughout school. So it's become like a nice tie to an adopted tradition from St. Ignatius in Riverview, Australia, and it's just kind of a fun little tradition that we've had now for several years that I'm quite proud of.
Yeah. So Dennis, you'll be happy the tradition continues. The students are engaged in learning. They're learning how to write very well. They're still taking the classics, but we also have some new traditions. So Kim, thanks so much for joining us, and Suzanne, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you tomorrow. And this has been Academics at BC High and Guidance at BC High, and thanks so much for joining us.
Have a good night. Thank you.
Well, thanks for joining us. We started our first half hour with Academics and Guidance in our Arupe division, and we continued with Academics and Guidance in our high school. And so if you'd like to learn more, these videos will be available and posted on our Facebook page, BC High Facebook. And if you want to learn more, if you're just starting the process, there's still time. You can email us at enrollment@bchigh.edu. And we hope to see you next week. We'll be talking about getting involved. So again, the first half hour, 7:30 to 8 on Monday night, we'll talk about getting involved in the Arupe division. What kind of offerings are there for students to get involved, particularly in co-curriculars? And then we'll talk in the high school about all the different offerings that we have for co-curriculars. So getting involved next week, 7:30 to 8 for our Arupe division, 8 o'clock to 8:30 for our high school. Take care.